Howdy, y'all.
Becky, what's happening?
On days that we are talking about self-care and we're talking about pouring more love and support into our community, and then we bring in like a freaking powerhouse into the mix. I mean, I am so jazzed about this conversation that we are about to have because we have Eryn Eddy on the show today. And for anyone who doesn't know, I think I might have heard some audible screams like from some Eryn Eddy groupies that are listening right now. But she is the founder of So Worth Loving, and she is an extraordinarily loving human being. We've spent just an inch of time with her. John's known about her and her company for years. And she just has this incredible story about the power of honest conversations. We're going to be talking about the impact of self-doubt today, but I want to give a little bit of background on her because she has an incredible story. And I love that when she sent us her bio, it was like a little tiny paragraph. And it's like just the very tip of the iceberg of her wonderfulness. So Eryn Eddy is a social entrepreneur, a writer, a speaker, and a creative director. And so she founded this lifestyle clothing brand called So Worth Loving, which I love, by the way. That work has just been featured on CNN and MSNBC, Mashable, Oprah magazine. I mean, everywhere.
Casually, Oprah magazine.
Yeah, I just want to put that at the end, thinking that people just wouldn't even glom onto that. So she frequently guests and writes about just like personal struggles and community and empathy and entrepreneurship and the power of honest conversations and that impact of self-doubt. And if you have heard any of our episodes, those are common themes that are threaded over and over again in our conversations. And a couple of these are actually our core values of our company. So I just think we're in great company with a like-minded individual who's going to come in and just love us really well today. So Eryn, welcome to our show.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here.
Literally just put her hands up in the cheering position.
Enthusiastic hello ever.
Get on. So I love that this concept, it started on Tumblr and it grew into this massive movement. And I wonder if you could just kind of walk us through your career journey and what led you to here today.
Yeah. Shout out to Tumblr. I don't know if it's still kicking, but I know it's had some issues back in the day. But I was an art director for a nonprofit before I started my company. And I was just new out of high school, just kind of figuring my way, working for my parents' company. They manufactured furniture for around 40 years. So I was doing that and then went into art direction for this nonprofit. And the founder asked me, he was like, sky's the limit, Eryn. What do you want to do with your life? And I thought it was a trick question because I'm working for him. And so I'm like, oh,
work for
work for you, and so I started just kind of thinking through like, what is it that I want to do? And I think sometimes we all go through that where you're like reactionary to like what's in front of you instead of like thinking really deep down, like, what is my longing and desire and aspirations? Like, what do I really want to do? And so I was honest with myself and I said, well, I didn't tell him this. I actually told him I'm doing it. I actually told him that. He was so bored of that answer because he knew it wasn't true. And so I started thinking about it and I thought, I really want to pursue music. I've been singing since I was younger, since I was like 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, all the way up to my probably 25. Been singing cover songs and I never really created something of my own though. And so when I started to admit what I wanted to do, it was like, I want to do music. So I contacted a producer. I was like, let's do this. I had no idea, though, how to write songs and I didn't know melodies. I didn't know harmonies. I didn't know like any of that stuff. I was just like, yeah, like I'll just like sing songs. And so I dove into doing music and I had a Tumblr blog with my music. And my music videos started to go viral and I started licensing my music to TV shows and commercials. And this was way back before like YouTube was what it is now. And before Instagram, this was, oh gosh, like 12 years ago, which makes me feel old. But I just so from there, I was just overwhelmed by how people believed in my music along the way because I was like, I have no idea what I really want to do, but let's just try this. And then people believed in it and they they like identified with lyrics and they liked the sound, and that's such a gift. And I mean, we all know that if anybody believes in our heart of what we want to pursue, it's like it's a gift. We feel so humbled by it if we're humble people. um, and so right. And so I decided I wanted to create some sort of fan merch, but I hated that word fan because I was just like, ugh, like like we're with each other, like we're doing this together. So I wanted to create something though for people that believed in me, and I didn't want it to be my name or my face on a shirt. Like I was like, oh, it has to be something else. So the phrase "so worth loving" came to my mind, and I feel like it was just a divine whisper. And like any entrepreneur, you go and you look at every domain possible to see if it's available.
And brander, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And brander, you're like, is it seamless on all platforms?
Yes.
And it was. Not just Tumblr. And I didn't have any money to screen print t-shirts, so I had to get scrappy. So I was like, okay, well, what could I do? Well, I got cardboard stencils and I've got fabric spray paint from, Michael's or Joann's or Hobby Lobby, wherever I got it from.
I'm loving you right now. Keep going. This would be me in my garage.
Fancy domain and you got a spray paint.
That's it.
Awesome.
That's right. It was like, all you need is domain and you need cardboard stencils and fabric spray paint to start a t-shirt company, guys. And I duct taped them, like, making sure that the letters aren't getting duct tape on them, and I'm trying to make it seamless. And then I created a cardboard stencil out of duct tape and like individual letters, which, looking back, I'm like, I don't know why I just wouldn't have gone and gotten a $10 plastic stencil made, but you just do whatever you gotta do.
I hope that stencil is somewhere really like prominent in your house right now, framed or, standing as a work of art.
This is how they make the shirts.
I still use it no matter how soggy it got, with the watered down spray paint. I would visit Walmart or anywhere like to get these cardboard stencils because I'd only spray paint shirts. Oh, well, okay, hold on. I'll get to that point. So I put my home address on my music blog and I said, mail me your personal t-shirt, like your shirt, mail it to me and I will spray paint "You're So Worth Living" and I'll mail it back to you for free. And if you want to pay for shipping, awesome. If you don't, totally cool. I'll cover it. But also just keep in mind that I can only do black and white fabric spray paint. So don't be sending me any colors that don't work with those two spray paint bottles. And I kept receiving tens and tens and tens of shirts just filling up my mailbox. I'd come home from working at my day job, and I'd open it up and it'd be these like different types of packages just popping out of my mailbox. And it was so fun because when you opened it, it smelled like someone's like Downy or Tide, or like they just washed it and they just put it in the package, and they wanted this message that they are so worth loving. And I would receive stories after, when people started sending me these shirts. Along with the shirts were stories of people telling me why they felt unworthy of love. It was like a natural evolution of an idea going out online to it hitting somebody personally in another state that I don't know and wanting to share why it meant something to them, and them physically sending me why it meant something to them. And it was just such a powerful thing. And I did that for 8 months until I realized my fingers are starting to get sore from spray painting. And I am spending a lot of money on postage. So I need to maybe figure out how to make this sustainable. But also, it was the one thing that I could not stop thinking about at my day job. And I was like, I've got to figure out how to do this. And so that was kind of the beginning of my career and starting So Worth Loving. And I've owned it for 10 years now, where it's a lifestyle brand. And we use apparel and storytelling to share why we feel unworthy of love and to have honest conversations.
She just like gently just said that last part. And like the most jaw-dropping portion of this story. I mean, I had to back up a little, to get multiple letters from people saying, I have never felt worthy of love, makes me almost cry sitting here in this chair. And what a tiny like sliver of a door that just opened into someone's heart that they're asking anybody to walk through and tell them why they are. And to think, and I just think that these three words like can transform, your life and the way that you can pour into people. And I mean, I just have to say, like, I can tell you're a singer, or there's something about your voice that's just so calming and sweet.
Amanda Gorman
Yeah,
effect.
she does have the Amanda Gorman effect. And like, but I just think that the way that you have taken, you let the apparel work its magic because it was going to go ahead and work, but you kind of leaned into this. There is another layer of this that is a cry for help, and it's a need for community. And I love that you said yes and that you poured into it. And for anyone who's ever been on your website or follows you on social, you will see how well that this story is translated over and over again.
Another hack that I want to pull out for nonprofits is that, when we were in healthcare, you wouldn't necessarily think storytelling would bubble to the surface when you think of healthcare, but the power of asking somebody their story, especially somebody that's giving to your organization, it opens up windows that just we would have never thought possible. It's like people want to be seen, they want to feel valued and feel known. And so just that subtle invitation that I want to hear that and we can share that. I mean, what a powerful thing that everybody should be doing wherever you want to create community. How are you engaging other people? Like, it's their story that matters. I think it's so powerful.
Yeah. And that was what was so impactful for me, because I think, I never really, apart from therapy, which I started going to therapy when I was 20. Yeah, it was like when I was going through premarital counseling at the time. So that was kind of my introduction to therapy, was premarital counseling. And then I got into therapy. But it wasn't until I started receiving stories of people sharing why they felt unworthy of love, and seeing and then recognizing in myself my own personal struggles. It wasn't until I started seeing other people's stories that I started looking internally at my own story, which sometimes, so it's so neat, because not only can we gift somebody that awareness of their story by sharing our story, but we can also like do that for another person when we share our story. It's just, it can be reciprocated. And I just remember thinking like, whoa, like the stories that I would receive were, stories on depression, anxiety, verbal abuse, physical abuse, specific stories on my dad never hugged me growing up. And never, so like anybody that hugs me, if a man hugs me, I feel unlovable. Like specific stories like that, that make a mark on us. And what I learned is that it's not like this like random group of people. It's our neighbors, it's our friends, it's the people that we do life with that we would not even know that might be something that they're wrestling inside. And that's what I really learned in the stories, like in the stories that we would receive from just receiving these shirts. And then when we started screen printing t-shirts, because I was like, okay, I gotta figure this out. So when we started screen printing shirts and doing collections, and slowly, I remember my first batch was like 5 smalls, 7 mediums, 4 larges, just like tiny like run of shirts. When we started selling shirts, we started getting emails of stories of people saying, and it was like they wanted somebody to listen, but they also wanted to just say like, I want you to listen to my story. I want to be seen, but I also want to share it because I know it's going to help somebody else, because I felt alone and I don't want other people to feel alone. And that's what I learned in just like in my inbox. I was like, all these people feel alone. If they only knew, they weren't. And that's when we started putting, with permission, stories on our blog and sharing that through multiple mediums of social media and things like that.
Goodness.
I know. I just love Eryn. And I mean, it just shows that, community, you don't have to even be a nonprofit to like have a meaningful impact in community. And we need to find people that are like-minded, that share our values, that can be a support system to us, because life is hard. Life is hard pre-pandemic. Life is going to be hard post-pandemic. And it's like, to get through that and to enrich your life, I really think that community is just one of those great answers. So I want to talk a little bit about like valuing yourself. And so you talk a lot about like the way to change the world is starting with valuing yourself. Can you talk a little bit of that and how you are listening to struggle with self-doubt and how you kind of turn that on its head?
Yes. Oh man, where do we begin? I know we mentioned a little bit about burnout right before we started recording. It was 5 years in. And I think because I started So Worth Loving organically, I didn't have time or just the awareness met with denial, to know how to lead So Worth Loving because it just evolved. So I first off and look back and like there are some ways I wasn't equipped, but I'm so grateful because I mean, it did it on its own. Like it was going to do it on its own and was not meant for me to just be like, I'm the person that tells you you're worth loving. Like it was not about that just because I started it. So it's probably about like 5 years in, I hit burnout and I am just, I find myself going through a divorce. I find myself like paying everybody else but me, living on barely anything. But our sales are great, but my overhead is large, and I am trying to figure out how to be a business person met with a missional heart. Like that's hard on yours. Like one of my friends said, you're either a business person or you're a creative business person. And those are two different breeds. And I was like, whoa, yes, because I am for sure a creative business breed. And so when I hit burnout and everything, that was when I learned I was operating out of an unsustainable place. It was out of maybe ego. It was out of pride. It was out of insecurity. It was out of not valuing myself by saying no to situations that I should say no to, saying no to opportunities because I need rest instead of saying yes to more burnout. And when I hit that rock bottom, that was when I recognized, whoa, I am empowering people to believe that they are worthy of love and to respect themselves and to love themselves and treat themselves with patience and kindness. And I'm over here spinning my wheels and not valuing at all who I am and my skill set and how God wired me. And I recognized I cannot keep doing So Worth Loving if I'm going to be operating out of my old ways. I've got to learn how to value myself, and I've got to learn where does that come from. And so I'm so passionate about sharing how to value yourself in the midst of owning a mission business and creating the boundaries. And sometimes it's just unrealistic that you'll have balance, but it is realistic, I think, to have boundaries. And I don't believe anybody respects a yes person. Dr. Henry Cloud says that often, but yet we say yes to be respected. So I had to learn how to value myself if So Worth Loving was going to sustain, and look at why I was doing that, looking inward. And I'm sure all y'all can relate, right? Like if you've hit a moment, you start after it's like you have to hit a wall and then you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. You like hit the wall and you're just like, bong, 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 bong. And you're like,
That's the closest to hearing you sing that we've gotten.
Yeah. Right. Is that a G? A G? Okay. I just have to say, yeah. I do relate to what you're saying. I mean, John and Julie know that I've had a rock bottom moment in my life. And it was, I'm curious if you're an Enneagram too. Have you taken the Enneagram yet? Because
I have, I'm a 7.
Oh, a 7. You're the creative. I mean,
I run from pain.
Yes. Julie and I are the helpers who can never say no. to anyone because we want to help and we're just hardwired that way. And you don't ever think about how that literally depletes you in some way when you're not pouring that back into yourself. So I just think there are so many incredible thoughts that you are pulling together here, especially for people that have a passion for mission work, for helping others. And that is really the 100% of the listenership here are people that are pouring into others and trying to make the world a better place. But we do recognize that we are not pouring into ourselves very well at all. So I think that your story is one that really resonates with me. And I would guess it would resonate with a lot of people that are listening.
Well, the other topic that I'd love to get your feedback on, I just love thinking of you as like this accidental CEO. I mean, you were a singer that wanted to build community, that wanted to serve her fans. I'll use the word fans. And it turned into, I'm sure you wake up several years later and you're running this business that has all the overhead you described, staff, inventory, problems, all the things. You had to get really good with having honest conversations. And I know this is one of the banners you wave. So I would love for you to kind of speak into that power and how we could use that in our own businesses or nonprofits or wherever people find themselves.
Goodness, yes. Because when you sit with that profit and loss statement and you look over your finances with somebody that's like a professional and they like have it made and they know how to do it, and you feel like you're just trying to like make things work. When you sit with them, it's all of a sudden your identity can be found in that reflection of success. Like that's all of a sudden your metric of success is those numbers or those donations that came through this year, the amount of donors that you have. It's like now I'm sitting with somebody and I'm finding that this is where I'm finding my value. Those types of honest conversations with people that are mentors, business-minded people, even honest conversations about employees about how they don't like your leadership style. All of those types of things can really hit us in our self-worth. We start to find our value in the praise of what the donations look like, the praise of what the employees think, the praise of what people online think. And next thing you know, our self-worth and our self-esteem is on this like heartbeat of up and down, up and down. It's like a roller coaster of, if I maintain these things, then I'm valued in my company, I'm valued in my mission, I'm valued in the community I serve. And then if something rocks the boat, you lose a sense of identity because our identity really can't be found in those metrics. And that's what I found. The honest conversations of sitting with somebody looking at those profit and loss statements. I remember a mentor of mine said, Eryn, your metric of success and your metric of impact is not found in your finances. And it was so refreshing to hear that because when I first started So Worth Loving, my accountant told me, over my dead body, are you starting a retail business? And I quit the next day after he said that to start a retail business.
And then you tell him, I'm telling people not to pay for postage. I want to do that.
And 10 years later, she sends him a So Worth Loving sweatshirt. And it's like, you also are so worth loving.
Send him my book. No.
Sign the book.
Sign the book.
We love our bean counters. We have an accountant as well. And I just think that's their job is to tell you.
It is.
But we're in the business of, much more than profit and loss. It's so ironic you're talking about that. I mean, John and I were literally texting about that last night at like a little before midnight. And we were just sitting in the gratitude of like the place that we're in, and that it's not just about like dollars and cents, like shoot me now if I have ever get to a place where it's about that.
Yes.
Human impact of it is the revolutionary part of it. And so, and I do think what you're saying about having honest conversations and making sure that we're not getting caught up in all the things that are making us feel like a less than perfect human, it's like, we've got to be able to rise up above that.
Yes. I remember when somebody came up to me at a coffee shop, this was 6 years ago, and they came up to me and they were so excited and they were telling me about what So Worth Loving meant to them. And y'all, I remember I got a cup of coffee at this stupid expensive place. Why was I spending like $10 on this vanilla latte with almond milk? I don't know. I mean, But I'm more enthusiastic about that than this person sharing their heart to me. And I could have listened to the fact that I didn't respond in a empathetic way. Instead, it was like apathetic, which is worse. It's worse to become apathetic towards your mission. And I recognized, I remember getting in the car and being like that. Anyways, moving on. Then when I hit rock bottom, I was brought back to that memory. And I remember just thinking, oh, that was a signal. And I wasn't really being honest with why I was just kind of anymore. Like, why was I And I think we have to ask as leaders, and especially as leaders pursuing something that is missional and it has bigger impact beyond our profits, bigger impact beyond its life impact. We have to pay attention to those little moments where we're starting to experience apathy or discontentment, or finding our value and rechecking if we got many likes on that photo, or the engagement on social media. Like, those are all little, to me, those are all little signals of where I'm finding my sense of self-worth. And they're all signals that I'm going further away from the vision and the goal, because I'm really just looking side to side at what other people are doing instead of looking at the vision forward and being excited about that and seeing the impact that all of us collectively are making together.
Eryn, Eddy, that was a brilliant, brilliant hack. Hack is too horrible of a word to use, because I think we absolutely need to be doing that. And in nonprofit, I think it's so easy to get guilty of that, of just getting tone deaf to the missional moments that should be our North Star, that should cause us to pause and process and to reflect and ultimately share with people when you have those moments. But when you're dead to that, like, it is time for a true check of life and check of purpose. And because we need leaders that are activated, and engaged with their mission. And so I love that you're having that conversation with us.
And people, not even just leaders. I mean, just even the frontline, the little intern that's in our office. Like, how do we make sure that everyone feels seen, that everyone feels, we talked a lot about abundance mindset, that everyone feels like they have a place at the table, that they have a voice to offer and something to give. And I really love this exploration of apathy, because I mean, I think all of us are in a paralysis right now. We've been in this pandemic for almost a year now, and we're going to have to weather it a little bit longer. And nonprofit professionals particularly have been hustling and pivoting and trying to make some lemonade out of these lemons that has taken away, in-person events, in-person solicitations, all of these things that we just took for granted that we could do to operate our business. And I would wager that many are extremely tired, that many are worn down, many are feeling very apathetic because we've had to take on so much more. And, I wonder what advice you would give to them. You see this individual wherever they are in the world, and they're just having a hard time finding inspiration. What would you say to them?
I would say sometimes when we go through a huge change in our life, our immediate response is to change more things. It's like when a big change happens, we're like, we need to change more things. I would encourage, this may not be a popular answer.
Yes.
When I went through immense change, I mean, change of staff, fulfillment, marriage, status, reputation, all within a year. I mean, everything was stripped of me. My first inclination was to change more, pivot more, do more, put this pressure on me to like move forward and this and this and this and check off these boxes. And I was scarcity mindset. And that quote, desperate people do desperate things. I was so desperate that I just kept doing more desperate things that put me in a deeper hole and put the vision of sower loving in a deeper hole. I started making decisions that were not a reflection of where we originally would ever want to go or do or agree to, and nothing like bad or dirty or wrong. It was just not the right path. And it was because I was desperate. And so anybody that is in this season of huge change and loss, my encouragement is to be still in the change, because in stillness does create a renewed vision, because you sometimes have to be faced with stillness to see, one, what you're made of, one, what your mission's made of, one, of the team culture is made of. The stillness gives you that opportunity. And I know that somebody listening is like, yeah, but you haven't seen my finances or my bills and my things. No, I completely understand that. I completely understand that. I remember being at a coffee shop. I had $13 in my bank account and I had zero money, and I was 80 grand in debt. I had no idea how I was going to be able to do some of the things. And I just kept making even more poor choices. Like, I just kept moving. And I think sometimes we need to just be still to experience what change is supposed to do in us, which sounds really florally, I know. But I do think that there's some truth to that, of sitting in our change. Because when our external is all changing, I mean, we got to look at what is it doing to us internally for how we're going to start showing up for the communities we live in versus being reactionary.
I mean this in the most genuine way. Eryn, you need to write a book. And oh wait, I'm so excited that you have written a book. I cannot.
I was like, she has written a book. Can we talk about it?
I know. But I love that this is coming from a place of just, I mean, your wisdom on these topics is just so sage. And I feel like you're so young yet so wise. But I'm just loving this conversation. Julie, I don't want to miss this opportunity. We text each other during interviews, little hack. And Julie's like, can I please get in here and ask about young professionals?
I'm just sitting here wondering if you have special wisdom or special advice for, I'm 25, any other like young professionals that are coming out of grad school, just starting in their careers. How can we keep this mindset as our North Star? And maybe what would you like go back and tell yourself?
That's a great question. I am, because I started So Worth Living when I was 24. Yeah, I was 24. So I started So Worth Living when I was 24. I'm so grateful that I kept with it, because I think when you are 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, when you're starting off, it's so easy to have squirrel syndrome, because we look at like what other people are doing. And we're like, whoa, they've had more impact. Whoa. And you like keep looking side to side. And I am so glad that I just kept saying, I'm just going to trust the process. I'm going to trust the process. Surround myself with people that are wise beyond me, and they can be my no people, not just my yes people. And they will keep me on track to the North Star, like you asked. I'm so glad that I did that. I'm not saying like, oh, pat myself on the back, I'm so wise, but it's so easy to do, because I am very much a start 8,000 businesses. I have like 50 domains, I promise, on iwantmyname.com.
I was getting embarrassed looking at my GoDaddy account. How many domains have I?
I have so many, and all of them are great ideas.
Yeah.
They're all great. But if you have this, like, I want to start something, we can almost get addicted to that, to where we start multiple things instead of staying with the one thing. So if you are with a company that you just really believe in, stay with them, and don't get addicted to the feeling of jumping to company. Stay with them, because you're going to always feel that. You're going to always feed that. You're going to always have that appetite. So staying with the business you're starting, staying with the company that you're with, just staying. I think that is just the one thing that I am proud that I did when I was 24. I bounced around a lot. I mean, I'm not a very focused person, so I it sounds like I am, but like, I'm so glad that I did, because I'm now seeing, 10 to 12 years later, of some of the things I started when I was 23, 24, and 25, that I'm now seeing the fruit of, because I stuck with it, even in the midst of feeling like a complete crazy person, because everybody thinks you're crazy when you pursue something.
Squirrel syndrome.
I was about to say, I'm going to start using that as well.
I love that. That was great.
Well, that's one of our core values too, is play the long game, and that's what you're preaching here. And I think it is such a solid point. And in today's marketplace too, where people are changing jobs all the time, this can be your secret sauce that you're bought in. When it gets hard, when it gets ugly, you keep showing up. I think more people need to buy into that philosophy. So I love that you went there. Okay. Can we circle back to what I was going to talk about, which is your book, So Worth Loving. Please tell us about this process and what where did you take us in this book and where can we get it? All those things.
Yes. Well, it's funny because I have a theme with my life because I accidentally started a business and then I accidentally wrote a book. So, just do things on accident and then I stay with it.
Lose cancer. It's going to be amazing for all of us.
I actually posted something on Instagram the other day where I put on Facebook 4 years ago. I talked about writing in my journal, and like the past couple of days, I wrote 13,000 words. And on Facebook, I said maybe I should write a book? That was 4 years ago. So it's wild. This was literally yesterday, 4 years ago, that happened. So now here I am with a book. Well, when I went through a divorce, I was in trauma therapy. So I was going to trauma therapy, and writing have always been a huge journaler since my earliest journals when I was 12 years old. So I've always writing has always been a thing. And I have some journals that have been blank because I've been through seasons where I'm avoidant of my feelings and writing them down. But I'm the healthiest when I do write them down and I process them. Because I think when we journal, side note, I think when we journal, we think that if we put down on paper what we feel, that means it's true. And that doesn't mean it's true. It just means we're getting it out in a safe place, And so I in therapy and then in just coming out of the divorce and processing feelings and childhood wounds and all the things that you do with therapy, I started writing about grief, about friendship, about community, because I had experienced so much grief, lack of community, poor friendships. I started processing relationships after my divorce. I jumped into the dating scene, started dating a lot of people. So I started journaling about that, finding my self-worth and all these different metrics. I was just journaling it. And I remember thinking, maybe this would help somebody, but I don't want to air out my dirty laundry. And there are people attached to my story that I want to honor also. So how can I share some things that I've gone through in just the course of observing stories of So Worth Loving, being present in my own story, about awareness, about ownership, about receiving grace, about my anger towards God, my anger towards community, and then learning how to create healthy boundaries and protect what I'm doing the inner work on, and then how to be a better neighbor. Like I've learned all of that, and I've been journaling about it. I'd love to create something like for that. And so I told a friend that I've written about. At the time, I put together a book proposal. This is a little behind the scenes, which I know this is kind of what you may have not asked me to go towards, but I'm gonna share just a little bit of it.
Okay.
I put together a book proposal with no plan to give it to an agent or a publisher. I did it just to see if I could do it, just to see if I could promise writing something, just to see if I could create an outline of a book. And I told a friend, and she connected me to an agent, and then the agent and I had a 2-hour conversation, and he was like, I think you have something. And here we go, 2 years later, she's out in the world. She came out January 19th, and it's about just learning to discovering your self-worth and being very gracious to yourself when you start to look at some of the icky things that maybe choices that you've made, or things that have happened to you in your upbringing or in your friendships, and processing that in a safe place. And my hope for anybody that reads this book doesn't read my story, but sees their story and the emotions that they are feeling in it and feel less alone.
I already feel it. Just personally for myself, I won't speak for John or Julie, but I mean, I already see myself in your story, which, converges very similarly with the story that I have too. And I would think that that's probably reminiscent of everyone, and how timely that you wrote this book 2 years ago, that it could be delivered now in this pandemic when, we're all, experiencing some level of depression or anxiety or fear of what's coming or fatigue from what we've been through. We have to recognize those things and sit in them for a moment. And I think that's one of the the things that you've said that has impacted me the most is sitting in your stillness and processing that. I'm like you, I'm a writer. I process through writing. I've been journaling since I was a kid too. And sometimes I don't even know what I'm thinking or feeling until I start putting it out there. And so I understand that journaling is not for everyone, writing is not, but find a person, find an outlet. Like if you're a bicyclist, like process through that while you're bicycling rather than just turn off your AirPods for a second and just be inside your own head. I actually think you can see some growth. I want to talk a little bit about storytelling because I think that you do it so well. And do you have a really great story that you could tell us of either philanthropy or impact from one of your community members who has touched you?
Oh, that's gonna be hard to pick. We get so many stories that come into So Worth Loving. Ah, man. I remember the very first story I received. So uh, I was on a business retreat with an organization called Plywood People. They do a lot of conferences and things like that for nonprofit and social good businesses. And it was their very first retreat that they'd ever done. And I was 2 months into starting So Worth Loving. And I remember being in one of those meetings and I just felt a little overwhelmed because it was like, find your why and like all of these like, focus like maps and like all of these like logistical fill in the blank spider web things you're supposed to fill out. And I'm like, I don't know. That feels very like absolute if I write something down and I'm 2 months in. But I got this story. I remember after just being kind of like, oh man, that was a long day. I got an email from a woman that served on our team, eventually served on our team. At the time was just somebody that I had never met before. And she had shared with me that she had been through sexual abuse when she was 7 to 11, and then experienced just, I mean, if it could not, her story could not have been just more heartbreaking with sexual abuse and rape and abandonment and adoption and drug addiction and eating disorder all within a span of her life of like 15 years. And she went through rehabilitation and she went through um, counseling and trauma therapy. And on the other side, emailing us and sharing how So Worth Loving all through that, like all through her rehabilitation. No one ever like told her that she was valued and worth loving until she started seeking help from professionals. And I just remember thinking, this is why we exist. Because she was sharing, I had felt so alone for 15 years until I started seeking help. And I thought, this is why we exist. We exist because people feel alone. They feel alone in their own story. And while her story specifically just like hit me so hard and there was so many complexities to it, and I think sometimes we think, well, my story is, I don't have any. Sometimes we over glamorize, just heartbreak, and we're like, well, my story is so simple. I don't really have a story, or my story is so extreme that no one will ever understand. It's always the pendulum is swinging. But the one thing I learned is that either side of the pendulum, we feel alone, and that's the common denominator. And so that story for sure. But then, we receive stories often about, I'm going through a divorce right now. My community of belief, like people that are in the Christian faith, like specifically, I'm just bringing up stories that come to my mind automatically, have outcasted me. I don't feel welcomed anywhere. I don't feel loved. I feel I'm carrying shame and guilt. I've seen stories of, I can get out of bed. I don't want to brush my teeth. I don't want to shave my legs. I just want to sleep all day and drink all day. That sounds like a day that I want to do. I've seen those stories of just wrestling with the heartbreak and the ache of what life throws our way. And sometimes it's choices we make, and sometimes it's choices that were completely out of our control. So that's a very long-winded answer, but those are some of, and maybe y'all can edit that part out. But those are some of the stories that kind of come to my mind that we see, So Worth Loving sees.
I mean, what a gift that you get to be at this spot exactly where you're supposed to be, helping people and seeing people that feel unseen. And I just think, we love talking to social entrepreneurs and for good entrepreneurs. And part of that is like, you could have just made a profitable t-shirt business and probably have made it, but by connecting to this bigger cause and bigger purpose, hopefully it's been profitable, but you've also been a part of these people's story and changed lives. And it's like put them on a completely different trajectory. And I think having a vision that's that big and that bright with something like So Worth Loving, it just puts so much more meaning and goodness into the world. So thank you for sticking with it through the sitting and looking at the profit and loss statements. It just feels like it is worth it, on this side of it, getting to sit down and all these stories you get to be a part of. I hope that spurs some interest in people that have an idea listening today. Don't sit on that. Eryn, we love to ask all of our guests one good thing. And we define this as, hack for success, or maybe it's just a piece of advice. What is something you'd offer up our community today?
If you need the permission to book a $60 a night Airbnb to just go take a nap for a day, that's the good thing I'm going to tell you to do. I think you should go do that, because even if $60 is a lot, $90 is a lot, $120 depending on your budget, $200 a night is a lot. If it's $60, it is worth it for you to get a really long nap. And if you need the permission to do that, the good thing I'm going to tell you to do is to just go and do it, because your rest is so important. That would be my encouragement.
I'm dead.
I love
that. Okay. I want to read something really quickly, and I don't do this very often, but Eryn, in correlation with that, just such simple, heartfelt piece of advice that you gave there. Eryn has a manifesto on her website, and John and I are big manifesto people. And for people that don't know what that is, it is basically your love letter, your anthem, your Mr. Holland's opus about who you are and why you do what you do. And it's, fairly short, but I wanted to read it because this is a way that you can look inside Eryn's soul if you have not gotten it already. And I just think that it's going to help somebody today. No matter my history, past mistakes, relationship status, or career choice, I am worthy of love. I am not defined by my past. I am prepared because of it. While my own voice and others may tell me different, I will lean into the safe people that affirm this way of thinking. When I encourage others to love themselves, and I am encouraging them to treat themselves with kindness, patience, respect, and all that embodies love, we live our life knowing we have worth. So worth loving. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Eryn, Eddy, you have loved us so well on this episode. I absolutely love what you are pouring into your community, pouring into yourself, pouring into our community. And it's just a gentle reminder and nod to each of us that we need to take care of ourselves. I could tell every single person who is listening right now, you are loved in this space. You are cared for and appreciated in this space. And to be a vibrant member of this space, we want you to take care of yourself. These are some kind of tough times right now. We're getting it out with you. Love yourself well, and find someone else to love, because we can all lift our hand down and pull somebody up right now. And the only way we're going to get through any hardship in our life is through community. We don't want anybody to do this alone.
Thank y'all so much for having me. It is such an honor. I have loved this. We need to do a part 2.
A part 2 musical number, and it's going to be amazing.
And okay,
Yeah.
I know you already have, this. People that are finding you just for the first time today, how can people connect with you and So Worth Loving online?
Yes, you can go to soworthloving.com or at So Worth Loving on Instagram. They can find me at Eryn Eddy, ERYNEDDY, or ErynEddy.com.
She has all the domains. We already know this. We talked
I
about
do. I have all of them, y'all.
Thank you so much for your time and sharing your heart with us.
Thank y'all so much. This was so wonderful.